Hello boys and girls, Steve Fletcher here and welcome to the Everything Guide to Learning Guitar. Before we get started, can I ask you please to like this video, subscribe to my YouTube page, make sure that little notification bell is engaged and really help me grow my online business. Now if you are already a student of mine, either with private lessons, school lessons or Zoom lessons, then you will get the accompanying sheets to all these videos automatically alongside your lessons. If you're just watching me on YouTube, hello out there in internet land, then you will need to download the accompanying sheets from my website. The link is down there in the description. It's quite important that you do get those accompanying sheets because there's stuff that's going to be going on that you will just need to have that visual aid alongside the video. Okay, so we're entering the section where we start learning about the notes on the guitar. Up until now, hopefully, and fingers crossed, you've gone through and accomplished section 1, which was the first chords, section 2, which was where we added strumming, section 3, which is where we changed chords weirdly, and section 4, which is the bar chords. And in that 4 sections of learning, you've learned an enormous amount of stuff. You've done really, really well. You've learned an insane amount of chords, an insane amount of songs, a great amount of strumming patterns and stuff, and just really have solidified your technique as a beginner. What we're going to be doing now is not really following section 1, 2, 3, 4 path. You can now just pick and choose where you want to go with any of these videos. And of course, you don't have to do any of these videos that I'm doing as part of my learning. What we're going to be trying to do more and more is just do the videos almost like standalone lessons that you can just dip in and out of to your heart's content. Okay, so we're continuing this idea of remembering where all the notes are on the guitar. This is the way that uses the root notes of your chords. Now I've found by far the easiest way to remember the notes of your guitar, this is just me, is to start off learning the root notes of all of your chords. This will sort of start taking you away from the open string notes. You know, once you've learned what those open string notes are, that's one thing, but it can then still start being a little bit daunting to start filling in all these other notes here. So we're learning the root notes of the chords really does help with that. Now, what on earth am I talking about? The root note of each chord is the note that the chord is named after. Fairly straightforward, really. So a C chord, the root note is a C. The D chord, the root note is a D. The G chord, you get the idea. Now, how do you know which note is the root note? In almost every instance of chord playing, I can't think of a chord, a straightforward chord, where your root note isn't the first string that you touch when you strum a chord. So we're going to take a look at a few examples, and again, if you've downloaded the accompanying sheet from my website, or if you've got it to hand, if you're already one of my pupils, then this is where we're going to need that little bit of a reference. Now you should be used to this idea of not playing certain strings when we do chords. Every chord that you've had has had that nice little chord box with it, and some of those have had little X's above those strings. Things like, I mean, the first chords you ever learned to play with me was an A chord, which the chord box looked like this, and you can see quite clearly there that there is an X, little X, hiding over that low E string. Same if we looked at the D chord, you can see quite clearly there that there is little X's over the low E string and the A string. These are the strings that you do not play. And if you have been sort of not really been worrying too much about that, you know, playing everything all the time, you should really start trying to clean that up by now and only really hit the strings that you should do. So if we look at some chords, so for instance, the A chord, there is an X over the bottom E string, so we do not play that string, and we start your A from, you guessed it, the A string. So the root note of the A chord is that A string. Let's look at the D chord. That's another quite easy example. So there's our D chord. there is a little X over strings 5 and 6. Oh, listen to me. There is a little X over strings E and A. So the root notes, when you play from the 4th string down, is the D string. You guessed it, that is the root note of the D chord. And let's look at another one that's got an open string. So let's look at the E chord. Again, all strings are involved. Got that low E. The E is the root note of the E chord. The same thing works with all your minors as well. So E minor, still the same thing. That E minor is the E root note there. A minor, no E string on the bottom there. So that A there. D minor. Didn't play the E, didn't play the A, but we started with the root note D. Still a D minor. Okay, so let's start and look at a few chords that have got the root note is a fretted note, which will just start helping to leap you into this idea of learning a few of these notes here. So let's look at a C chord, for instance. Again, on the C chord, we don't play the low E string. You just strum down from the 5th, from what is the A string. But the A string has got a fret on it, and it is in fact the root note of the C chord. So what note is that right there? You've guessed it, it is the C note. So you already know now that that 3rd fret of the A string is the C note, because that is the root note of the C chord. Let's take a look at the G. Same thing with the G is that you play all 6 strings, okay, starting with that bottom E string, but it's not an E. The E is here, but we've got a 3rd fret being played there. You've guessed it. That 3rd fret is the root note of the G chord. It is the G note. So you now know that that 3rd fret of the bottom E string is the G. All right, let's take a look at one more. So the F, for instance, just to bring back your bar chords from your previous section. Again, we play all 6 strings. What note is that right there? That's the 1st note that you play there. Yes, it is the F. So using your chords and thinking of the positions of your root notes is a really, really helpful way, I find, to starting to learn where the notes are on the guitar. Okay, so we're going to carry on this idea of learning the notes on the guitar, and we're going to look at another little way of tuning your guitar. Now, we've already covered in a previous video, we've already covered what the open strings are. So we've got the E, A, D, G, B, and E strings there. But did you know that you can use some of the frets on your guitar to help you tune your strings? Now, because there are only 12 notes in total in an octave, what we end up with, but there's obviously more than 12 notes on your guitar, what we end up with is the identical notes positioned in various different places all around your guitar neck. And using these identical notes in various different ways can really, really help you. And in one way that it can help you is to help to tune your guitar. And that will in turn then help you to learn where some of the notes are on your guitar neck. So, for instance, we have the open low E string there. We've already covered the fact that we have the F on the 1st fret and we have the G on the 3rd fret. We looked at that when we were looking at the root notes of your chord. When we did the song Nights on Broadway, which you can look at here, we looked at sliding forward to the 5th fret bar chord there, and I told you that that was an A, which it is. This note here is that root note of that A chord, and it is therefore, of course, the A. And the wonderful thing about that A is it is that 5th fret A there is the exact same note that is your open A string here. So if I played one string and then the other, you can hear that they are the same note. So you could use that to help you tune. So you could use that fretted note to help you tune your next string. We could do the same thing by carrying on jumping down. So the 5th fret on the A string there is the D, and it is the same D that is that open string note there. So if I play those two, again you can hear that they are the same, and if you could help to tune that note by using that fretted note there. And if we jump up again, we have G, which is the same open G. Now you're thinking that I'm going to jump up to the 5th fret again, but this is where it does change ever so slightly. We have to go to the 4th fret of the G string to get the open B. A little bit of an anomaly there, but you soon get used to it. And then finally, we're going to go to the 5th fret of the B string, which is the open high E. So that's a really handy way of both checking that your guitar is in tune and learning where some of those notes are on the guitar neck. Okay, so thanks for watching, and join me over on the next video where we're going to continue this idea of where all the notes are on the guitar.